Okay, so welcome for those of you in my class in our single subject DLE. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas, bienvenidas. And for those of you joining in online, bienvenidos, bienvenidas, bienvenides. Let us know where you're tuning in from. So a little bit about the speaker series. The speaker series is teaching and learning along the U.S. Mexico borderlands. And this speaker series is part of the Transborder Scholar Collaborative, which is dedicated to preparing critically conscious border educators. And for those of you in my class, I know you're very aware and knowledgeable about what that means, but we're also working on spreading the knowledge and just spreading the understanding of what is critical consciousness at the borderlands. And in regards to that critical consciousness and creating those critical conscious border educators, we have speakers who are teachers, who are student affairs educators, who are community leaders that are also dedicated to the social justice of our communities at the borderlands and the vulnerable communities at the borderlands. So we're going to be learning about their work and their practices to create socially just classrooms and environments for everybody. And today's guest speaker is Armando Reyes. So who is Armando Reyes? Armando Reyes was born in Mexicali, Baja California, and went to school in the United States beginning in 4th grade. He graduated in high school in 1996 after attending Imperial Valley College before transferring to San Diego State University. He obtained a bachelor's degree in social sciences in 2002 and entered SDSU College of Education, where he obtained his preliminary single subject teaching credential in 2007. He worked in multiple positions for the Calexico Unified School District 2006 to 2016. And he returned to SDSU to complete coursework to obtain a preliminary multiple subject teaching credential. He authorized general subjects in 2015, and he worked for the Valentin Academy for the Arts of Sciences as an ELD supporter teacher and the LPAC specialist since 2016. In 2020, he was able to clear his teaching credential work and his credential work in multiple subjects. So today's guest speaker, Mr. Reyes, is going to be talking about the ELD standards, how to apply them in your lesson plans. He's also going to talk about the FNP and the reading difficulties that he has seen throughout his career that has been for 20 years already, right?
Yeah.
And then systems of support. So as we tune into today's lesson, whether it's online or of course in person, I want you to jot down questions that you might be able to ask during the Q&A. And why we want to address these questions for those of you in my class, it's going to help you, of course, for the upcoming assignments that you have. And for those of you online, whether you're in class or maybe tuning in from another part of the borderlands, be sure to ask questions that will help to enhance your career as critically conscious border educators. So with no further ado, we open up the floor and the mic now to Mr. Reyes.
Yeah, thank you. So let me get started. How are you guys doing? Good. You look tired. More tired than I do. I thought I looked tired. You guys, let's say you guys. I'm going to start off with a little mention here. Who saw the picture at the flyer? You guys remember? No. They showed me a little flyer where everybody has these really nice headshots. And about a couple of weeks ago, when Dr. Falcone asked me to send a headshot, I was so busy. And I'm like, headshot, sure. Oh, the yearbook pictures. So I grabbed one of the yearbook pictures, scanned it, sent it to her. That worked fine. And then when I see the flyer, everybody's had these really nice, pensive looking pictures. I look like I just had to sit down for 5 minutes and just like this. And the guy's like, all right. This way? Okay. That's it. Okay, we're done. Okay, good. I got another group I gotta go through. That was it. That was my picture experience. You're so busy as a teacher doing all sorts of things, juggling all these balls up in the air. the yearbook picture is the last thing on your mind. So I probably didn't shave that thing. The guy asked me, "Do you want another one?" Oh, fine, I'm good. I realized until later, he's probably asked me that for a good reason. Yeah, and when you get them, they're always a wonderful thing. You're like, yeah, that's my face in the photo. Yeah, great. That's part of what teaching is. You sometimes have to do so many things. You got to get what works. Not that's what the best looking thing. It's not your favorite, but it's what works. Okay, so that's our little icebreaker here for the start with you guys. Let me get my timer so I don't go over the hour limit and then you guys are dying on me. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about myself. Okay, so I grew up in the valley. I was born in Mexicali. I grew up around Mexicali, and around fourth grade, my parents decided, because they were going to move over here, they decided they needed me to learn some English, so they sent me to school here in the States. I was living in Mexicali, and we still didn't have a house here in the United States. So to avoid any legal problems, because we were getting all the papers fixed, so the immigration papers getting fixed, they sent me to the mission school. Are you guys familiar with the mission school here in Calexico? No? It's called Calexico Mission School. It's right here on First Street, I think. Right across the border. The fence is right in front of the school. You cannot have a school closer to the border than that. And that's where I went. It's a private school. So, and it wasn't because I never had to go do either coursework or anything like that. I actually got into mainstream classes. And ECN, I guess they didn't have that back then. But I picked up English, as you can hear. And eventually, around the age of, I think it was around in sixth grade, we were supposed to move to this side of the border. But then there was this big recession that you guys probably heard about. So they had to sell that house my family had to sell the house they were buying here because we had to make do back in there. So I didn't get to come live in the United States until I was in senior year. And by that time, I've been there for all those years. So they just, you know what, let's just let him finish there. That's what his friends are. So let's say I was not fortunate enough to enjoy public education. Okay, guys. But I worked there long enough to tell you about it. So all right, so let me tell you a little bit more. So yeah, completely Transfronterizx because I was living in Mexicali all that time. I was crossing over back and forth every day to go to the mission school. So I would see things like kids crossing across the border with backpacks from the other schools. So I knew there were other kids going to public schools even if they were living in Mex. And some of my friends would end up going to public schools too. So I moved to the States here, and one of the things that frightened me about senior year though was college. Was I gonna go to college in Mexicali, or was I gonna go to college in the States? I had not done any school in Mexicali since third grade. So I was really anxious about going back to Mexican education. My Spanish was not that good. It's the same stigma a lot of Puerto people have. And my conversational Spanish is pretty good. I can speak Spanish fine. It's the academic Spanish where I'm still insecure about. So I said, you know what? Let's stick to this side of the border. So I went to IBC. That was around 1996. I know, a long time. I went to IBC around 1996, and I started with undeclared major. I was still not sure what to do. But what I did find out at IBC, though, I liked history classes a lot. They were fun. You get to read about something that happened a long time ago, and you write about that thing, and then you get to present it to the class. And that was fun. I really liked that. So I kept doing a lot of the history classes at IBC, even though I had no major. I just kept taking every history class until I ran out of history classes. And I'm like, what am I gonna do with this? Right, basically the calendar like told me, well, you could transfer. They got more history classes here in San Diego State. That's what I ended up doing. I'm like, okay, I'll transfer to San Diego State, take some more history classes, get a bachelor's in social sciences. So I came to transfer here to San Diego State. got my bachelor's of social sciences, and now I got that. That's great. Now what am I gonna do with that? Oh, I can teach social sciences. Okay, so what gotta do for that? They tell me you gotta go to a teacher's education class. Okay, so I enrolled in the College of Education. And when I started the College of Education here in San Diego State, right here, this campus, guys, I didn't go to the main campus. I wasn't that lucky. When I started those teacher classes, I noticed something really funny. Everybody had a job in teaching except me. I'm like, oh wait, don't you have to do the classes first, get the credential, and then do the job? No, apparently some people got the job, and then they decided to get the credentials. And that was like completely, I had no experience in education. Some of the people had like started either as tutors or something else, or some other program. I got into teaching. Apparently some principal came up, hey, we'd like to be your teacher. And I was not fortunate enough for that. So I'm in the College of Education. I'm taking all the teacher courses. Everybody has already got a job. Everybody is writing lesson plans that they actually have. Whereas I'm like, oh wait, what's this lesson plan thing? I had to do this whole thing from the very beginning. I had no idea what I was doing. People were like, oh, you can do observations. Oh, you can do observations in your own room. Well, that one guy. Basically, I had to look for me to place to make observations. And I don't know if that's been your experience in education. I don't know if that's how it was back then. Talking like back in what, early 2000s, you know, mid 2000s actually. So I don't know if you guys already got jobs in education. Anyone? Raise hands. Subbing. All right. See, I didn't even start subbing. I didn't even have that. So some of you already have jobs in education. Like I said, I did not. So that kind of made me panic a little bit. But I kept at it. And I learned to do lesson plans. And when I learned to do lesson plans, I got to go to somebody else's class, and they wanted the lesson plans in a different form. Okay, we got to do lesson plans how they like it. And then next year, somebody else wants a different form of lesson plan. So I have to do all sorts of different lesson plans in all sorts of things, from safety concerns was mentioning what things could go wrong in the classroom. I had to mention that there was a cable in the classroom that a kid could trip on. Do all sorts of things, what state standards were being applied and what they were talking about this at the time. What federal standards, because they were talking about they're going to make federal standards. They never got to that. Don't worry, guys. No, they actually had to talk about could those be applied in this lesson. What? So that was part of my fun in teachers at the College of Education. One point, one of the instructors said, "You're not serious enough about education. I want you to do some extra coursework." They did that to me, but you know what? I want to show them I'm serious about education. I want to do this. Did the coursework, got the classes, and got my preliminary credential in social sciences, so preliminary credential, single subject of social sciences. I'm going to get so many jobs. I thought it's going to be amazing. Oh man! And by that time, I already started subbing too, because I figured I need to get some experience. So when I have my credential, I thought for sure I'm going to get a job teaching history. It's going to be great. And then I applied. And we didn't have EdJoin back then. You actually had to go look in the district headings and turn in the applications. And nowadays, you guys have EdJoin, right? You guys know about EdJoin, right? Yeah, okay. I had to go look for the postings. Had to go turn it in for. So the first year I had my credential, I had a lot of job studying. Now long-term studying, not even there. Okay, I was doing studying. I had my night job, so I had some money coming in steadily. But it was a struggle. It was a struggle, guys.
I think you were from Texas.
And I'm probably sure I was, because I subbed for a long time. Okay, thanks for that feedback. Anyway. So one of the things I remember though is One thing I remember about my teacher education courses, they had us made observations of like different teaching experiences, different teaching places. I did observations in middle schools, observations of high schools. I did an observation at the prison school. Did you guys do that already? No? Okay, I don't know if they do that anymore. Observation at the prison school. Okay, there's a school in the prison, and we had to go inside to make an observation.
We went to alternative event, but not to the prison one, there's a sound.
Yeah, we did once an alternative too, at the, I forget what it is, but no Central, we did a couple of those. And we did other observations about different teaching methods, but the prison one, that's the one I mentioned to you guys, was the most impactful because that's like, not every job in education is work. That's, I don't want to do that one. You end up dreaming a lot about work, guys. I don't want to dream about prison. You know, that was my personal choice. Again, those jobs pay me well, and some people say, you know, it's a lot better than some of the other jobs. I know people that are working there.
It's important too.
Yeah, it is. Okay. So I lived up studying basically for another 7 years before I decided that I did a couple of long terms that were in my subject area. I did one really great long term that was teaching economics in CHS, also high school. And I thought, oh, this is great because I started from basically March and I finished the school year for them. I think I did a great job. The kids liked me. They did the coursework. I also had to do, along with a group of seniors learning econ, one group of English language learners learning world history. For the seniors, there was a pacing guide, there was a textbook I had to follow. For the English language learners class, there was, up to you. There was a textbook, but it was really, really not the best textbook there was. And some of these kids, like I said, I didn't start the school year with them. They thought I was just a sub that was going to be coming in and out. They did not like it. But you know what? That was my top class. I figured, okay, I have all my econ classes. Some kids that were not the easiest ones, and then I have my tough class. And I toughed it out. I did all the work. I did lesson plans for the administration there. Pretty sure I'm gonna get that job. And the next year we went to musical chairs. Somebody else got that job, and somebody else got that person's job, and me, I sat out of the chairs. I didn't hear when the song stopped. This is things that happen to you in education, guys. There's sometimes you're not gonna get the jobs, and sometimes there's these really bad job markets. At the time I started teaching, I started getting my teaching credential. A lot of people were getting things slipped. Schools were getting a lot of budget cuts, like a lot. And I remember this because I've been studying, and at some schools somebody will bring the seniority list. That's a list of people like who had gotten started first. You guys remember the seniority list? A little bit. So I would go through a seniority list and figure out who was gonna get canned, who was gonna get pink slipped. And I remember the teachers actually like going on with it. Oh, mira, no, I know. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's. Sometimes there's not too much job security when you come into the market. It's just how it is sometimes. And as much as in the public system, sometimes you get tenure after a couple of years. Well, sometimes you lose the job before you can get the tenure. So I've been around 7 years that I've been subbing, that had this really good job experience, and then no other jobs are coming in. Then I'm thinking, you know what? There's people retiring in the elementaries. I gotta look for that. So I have my single subject credential that I've been focused on as my goal to teach history in high schools or junior highs, if I have to. I know. I'm gonna look into the elementaries. That same day, I said to look into elementaries, I called up human resources over here, the lady who was in charge of that. I asked her, do you sub the elementary? Yes, I do. Okay, good. started working elementaries right off that day. I had not done elementaries before. I had this crazy notion that who wants to work with little kids? You want to work with teenagers because they're so mature, right? They're not gonna ask you to go to the restroom every 5 minutes, right? Yeah, they're not gonna get distracted by every little thing. They're focused, right? Yes, this is being facetious. Okay, it is sarcasm. So I had that thought of like, yeah, I really want to work with the little kids. You know what? I need to work. I have a credential. I need to get a job. So I started working in elementaries. I had really positive experiences there. You know, kids were really respectful. You know, I was like, wow, these kids are not like the other high school kids. Okay, wow. They had their routines, which are very important for your classrooms. They had their routines. Like if I changed everything, the kids were, the teacher does it this way. Okay, let's do it that way. We'll do this way. Okay. They had their routines, they had their procedures, they had everything pat down. I was like, you know what? You gotta get that credential in elementaries. So I came back to San Diego State. I talked to counselors. All I needed to get the credentials was some more coursework, like a couple of classes, and that was it. So I came back, did the classes, got my extended credential and with an addendum in multiple subjects. And let me double check for their actual name. I think I did say the name right. It's a credential with addendum in multiple subjects. Before that, I don't think I mentioned this. I had come back to take some coursework so that my single subject credential could have an addendum for English language learners. I think now when you guys get your teaching credentials, you get that already. But back then it was an addendum, you had to do it separate. So I had to do some coursework, I had to take some tests in the main campus. So I had single subject credential, had the addendum for English language learners, and then I had the multiple subjects addendum. And I got a job. But still hired me right there. I was like, wow, okay, this is great. Finally got a teaching job, actual position. I came in to cover for a teacher that had left to get another position. And she left like right around spring break. And I came into a 6th-grade class. For kids, they wanted their teacher back. Not a good experience. Not a good experience. And I did the school year, I finished everything. The district told me, yeah, that position that we gave you, not there. Okay, what? That was one of the lowest points in my life, guys. I was like, okay, I thought I had the job now. I finished everything. Okay. I looked for jobs all around the state. We had internet back then. So looked for jobs all over the state, looked for some jobs in Victorville, had some good hits. The best position I got offered was a job all the way in East Palo Verde or East Palo Alto. I was getting mixed up. It's basically where the Google headquarters are, all the way up to San Francisco. Okay, this is gonna be what I'm gonna do as a teacher. I'm gonna head out of the valley. I'll leave the valley finally. Go over there. And my dad got sick. Started having heart problems. Can't leave the house now. Immediately that same week I got offered a job at East Palo Alto. I looked around for something in the valley. I applied everywhere I could. And I even applied to the charter school. Are you guys familiar with charter schools? Okay. Charter schools are basically schools that get the same funding as public schools. It's public funds. The thing of the charter school is they usually have a special education plan where they're going to focus on something. It's a way to create an alternative for parents that don't want their kids. They have some issues in the public system. So usually, if you're in the public system, your kid's supposed to go to school because of where you live. Your other alternative is either homeschooling or going to the charter school. Charter school doesn't go in the district then. You just bring the kid, as long as they're in the county, because it goes by ICOE funds, Federal County Office of Education. As long as you bring your kid in and they're part of there, you're from the county, your kid is enrolled. So we had a lot of parents that were working on Central, that want the kid on Central, even though parents that work on Central, but they live in Calexico, And that way they have a kid, they're able to pick them up right from school and go back home. A lot of parents like that. So I ended up working in charter school. I had no experience in charter schools. Again, another situation where I had no experience. And I went ahead. Okay. I talked to the principal, and right there at the meeting said, well, you know, you have the job, right? Okay, that's good. That's really nice. It's some sense of security there. So my position at the charter school was going to be this. I was in charge of the English language learner program. I was in charge of the state testing for the English language learners. Most schools have English language learners, and I know because of the public school systems where I've been in long enough, most of the schools, they would have a teacher work with a certain level of English learner. Let's say they're beginning to develop learners. They would go with one teacher. And then the emerging language learners, they would go with another teacher. And they would do that. They would usually have like a program where the kids usually have a conversation that they practice with each other, and they learn some vocabulary words based on a unit. Let's say a unit on the weather. The kids had to learn about clouds, rain. They had to engage in a conversation about clouds and rain. And usually they got an assessment to make sure that the kids learned the lessons from that unit. The school I started with, they did not have that kind of system with units. Our English language learners were going to work on fontes and panel-letters. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. They were going to work on a literacy program because after a school's decision, basically it's part of their LCAP plan, how they wrote it out. They had to focus on the long-term English language learners. These are students that they already know how to speak English, but because of their low scores, they can't test out of English language learning. So let me tell you a little bit more about the test too. Let me get back here. Let me get my notes. So, okay. So when I started the school, the church school, we had a test called the CELT. It was a California English Language Development T. I forget all the initials. That was a test that we had to do in the state of California to our English learners to show that they had progress in English language learning. There's a problem with the CELT. Around the time I started the job in 2017, California was starting to use Common Core standards, and the CELT did not align to Common Core standards. The CELT is more aligned to the California ELD standards, which we still use today. They were going to change the tests. So I had to learn in 1 year to do something they were going to get rid of the next year. That sound fun? But I had to do it. I had to do these things called course. I had to do this coursework in this system called Moodle, where you have all the tests. You hear the kids take the test, and you have to say what score will you give them. And then after you did that, you see your score, and you're like, you were so off the mark. You're like, oh, okay, let me see. They give you validations what the kid got a certain score. You have to study those validations. Why did that kid get a 2 if it sounded like a 3? Oh, because he kept repeating the same word. And that dinged him enough to go to 2s. Some of these tests are very subjective. So you think the kid tested really well, and according to the coursework, to the Moodle example, the kid did not score that well. But anyway, I did the Moodle work. I learned how to give the test. I gave out that test that year. It was a CELT test. And then I had to get ready to learn the new test, the LPAC. It'll come in the next year. And not just doing that, I'll have to be in charge of the English language learners. So as I mentioned before, in other schools, the teachers, they separate the kids into groups, and each teacher gets a different group. For our charter school, my principal wanted me to do a pull-up program. So I was going to be the one in charge of getting kids from certain teachers, taking them to my classroom, and then giving them the English language learner lesson. So it was me in charge of basically 80 kids. Not all at the same time. I had to separate them all, I had to figure out schedules. Some of the things you have to do as teachers is figure out how is this schedule gonna work. Because they're not only doing my specials, they're also going with their mainstream teacher for certain things. They also have other specials in our church school. The kids have science pull-up program and they have an art pull-up program. So I gotta make sure my schedule doesn't conflict. And then when you finally have your schedule, you find out, oh wait, this kid has a 504 plan and they need to go to special ed at that certain time. You have to reduce some schedules sometimes. You have to figure out what can work. So let me tell you a little bit more. Let me see here. Well, that's pretty much it for me. Some of the things I'm doing also as an English language learners teacher is I got into this thing called item writing, and I mentioned it to somebody at the beginning. So part of giving the LPAC at the end, they always when you do your trainings, they always put at the end, if you want to join us, here's the link. I'm like, okay, let's see what this is like. I clicked on the link. There's this thing called educator opportunities. So there's a chance for you to actually work and make the test. And so I got into this thing called item writing, where the Sacramento County Office of Education, every so often, gets a group of teachers to look at some things they're going to do in the test. And as teachers, you look at the items, and you get to approve them or tell them why these items don't work. Some examples of the item writing stuff, I can't give you specifics, but some examples of the generalities I've done is examples where there's a kid and the text says, what is the boy going to do? So you see the kid, he's grabbing what looks like a jacket. And in the text, it says the correct answer is going to be the boy is getting his jacket or the kid's getting a jacket. You're supposed to put it incorrect if they get a sweater. Now, we're from the valley, right? Whatever you have that's protecting you from the cold, sometimes it's a sweater. Right? So if a kid is using the word, the boy's getting the sweater, I'm supposed to mark that wrong? So that's one of the things I've done as item writing. I told the people in Sacramento, no, this is bad because you actually have to be more general. Anything that protects you from the cold is going to be a sweater, which is a mixture of sweater and a sweater. And I mentioned that to them, and they actually changed some items. So as part of the feedback you also get to do as teachers. Sometimes you can do those educational opportunities, and you probably don't know where you're going in. And that's kind of my life story. I don't know where I'm going in half the time. But I got into those educational opportunities, and I think I've changed some things. Some kid probably somewhere is gonna not flunk the test because he's not gonna get dinged because he called something a sweater. So that's some of the stuff I've done. Okay. Let me go now to talk to you about using the LD standards. I know you were waiting for this part. I know. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit about using LD standards. LD standards that we use in the state of California are still the California LD standards from 2012, the state we know the year. Those were made back when we had the CELT. So we now have a state test, the LPAC, the new test. It doesn't really align so well with the standards. That's probably a little beef about it. I'm just sharing that with you guys. But the standards are still good. We're not throwing those out yet. They're still useful. Currently, these standards were made about 11 years ago, so we should probably look into getting something updated. Let's talk about what the ELD standards are and what they're not. Okay, so ELD standards are really great to help students. Sorry, I got stuck here. So they're insufficient when used alone to achieve the goals of having students read, analyze, interpret, and create a variety of literary and informational text types. The standards themselves are not going to be enough for what you need to do. They're going to be your guideline. You can go look at the standards and see where a student is at a certain grade and figure out where they're supposed to be going. but the standards are not gonna tell you what to do. Exactly. The standards help students develop understanding of language as a complex, dynamic, and social resource. So tell students how to learn about tone. I mean, you're supposed to tell students like, that's not the kind of tone you're gonna use in this conversation. The standards do mention that. That's one of the things they work on. Standards are also help students be aware that there's different languages and various of English. So you understand that the students understand there's different forms of English, formal, academic. They help students contribute actively to class and group discussions. They help develop proficiency in getting registered based on context. That's the kind of stuff that standards are good for. But the standards do not provide an example of all the processes and resources you're going to need. That's usually going to be your language program. Okay. They provide descriptions of knowledge and skills that are essential. One of my favorite things of the standards, in the ELV standards, is almost, I think it's chapter 6. You go to the end, and I'll tell you at each grade what to do with certain student and how to apply the background knowledge that they have. It tells you, like, for instance, you have a student that came in from a different country that does not have a Latin-based alphabet. It tells you that you need to teach that student the context, you need to teach that student the basics of our system of writing, like everything from what side to what side, right to left, left to right, because the student's going to have a whole different alphabet. So you have students that came from certain parts of Asia, and you teach them all about the Latin alphabet. The standards will mention that. The standards will not give you a chart of what letters to teach them or what phonemes to blend or anything like that. Okay? All right. Now let me tell you a little bit about what we do in my school. We do this thing called Fontes and Panel literacy. Have you guys heard of Fontes and Panel? No? Okay. I was already correcting. Okay. So Fontes and Panel literacy is a system we use in our school. It's based on starting readers from letter A, trying to get them all the way to letter C. So they go up certain levels. They're aligned to the Lexile levels. They're aligned to, I think what else? Well, AR levels too. They're aligned to the different levels they have. There's actually charts to show you how they're all aligned. And in Fontes and Panel literacy, what we're trying to do is we're trying to have the students try to read different kinds of texts so they're actually interested in reading. As I said, my school, most of our English learners are long-term English language learners. Long-term English language learners are students that already have all of the language socially. They can speak English to their friends. They can speak English to a teacher. Then when they take the test, it shows them as English language learners still because their reading levels are so low. For a student to pass the LPAC, they need to master 4 things in English: listening skills, speaking skills, writing skills, and reading skills. The listening skills are usually in this form. You play a recording to the student, and the student has to tell you what he heard the recording. Back in the day when we started the test, you had to read the recording. But I guess a lot of us English language learner teachers have really thick accents. So they made us do a recording. I'm serious, guys. That's one of the things I talked about in Sacramento. Some of the teachers had really thick accents. So to avoid that, they use a recording. So the student has to hear a recording of a conversation in English. They start with hearing conversations from 2 kids. The conversations get a little bit more difficult. Now they're hearing conversations with teachers giving instructions. And you got to ask the students, what did the kids say to each other? Then you ask them, what did the teacher say to do? And then based on that, that's their listening skills. The next thing the student has to master is speaking skills. Again, there's recordings that the student hears, but then you have to engage the student. You have to ask the student questions. What is that teacher doing? You show them a picture. What is that student doing? Then you have other questions, such as, what would you prefer? The student has to state an opinion. Then there's more complex conversations. This is for the upper level. Like third grade and up. You play the recording of a teacher talk, and then you ask the student, you tell me what the teacher spoke about. That's something that some adults have problems with. Okay. Now, students are allowed certain scaffolds. They're allowed to take notes. They have pictures to help them know what they're looking at. But the speaking skills can be hard for students. Some students have either a shyness from speaking English because they don't know enough English. Some of them hear the thing, but they can't express it. They don't have the academic language enough to share with you what they heard. That one can be a frustrating. Level. The next thing that you do is reading skills. I mentioned writing, I think, before. Reading skills, the student has to read text, and they have to answer questions. Simple as that. Some students will do the first 2 or 3 items. Read a sentence, and then when they get to read a paragraph, you can see their face. Then they get done with the paragraph. Then they get to the next item. You have to read 2 paragraphs. And students just like give up. A lot of writing, a lot of reading for some kids. Especially kids that have reading deficiencies. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And the last item is writing. For the lower levels, kinder, first and second, they have to write in a little booklet. It's part of their learning of writing. They have to learn how to use a pencil to write. The upper levels, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, they have to do it on the computer. Writing the items is hard for the students because they first have to read the information and then they have to write it. And sometimes they don't get the information, the correct thing they're supposed to do. They read a prompt like, read the following sentence. And they have to read the sentence, and then it says, now write the mistakes in the sentence. A lot of kids just write the whole sentence. Automatic failure right there, because the kid did not follow the prompt. So that's part of giving the LPAC test. It's a tough thing. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I said, it's usually my EO language students that I have in school around 80 to 100. So beginning of February, I took tests about 100 kids. Now all at the same time, I know. I try to get down to the upper levels first because those are usually faster. Because the little ones, I have to do more on one-on-one testing. I have to ask them a lot of the questions one-on-one. It gets really time consuming. You're lucky if you can sometimes get done with 5 kids a day. But that's kind of one of the things you do as an English language development teacher or the LPAC testing teacher. Anyway, so let me tell you a little bit about FMP literacy. That's the thing we use with our kids. So some of the kids are still in the learning to read stage. When kids start school, we start teaching them to learn to read. And later on, around 2nd grade, then we have teaching them the skills of reading to learn. Beginning of the school, for kids, you teach them phonics, you teach them blending. And then later on, the kids start learning vocabulary, or they start learning author's intent, things like that to make them think about the learning. Well, most of our long-term English language learners, they sometimes get stuck when it comes to phonemic blending. They can't get some of the words together, and that frustrates them. They don't seem to advance. And that's part of what we do with the program. We try to identify what mistakes is a kid doing. When we make a kid read something, we usually have a benchmark assessment. We have the text that the kid's going to read and write down every mistake the kid's making. The mistakes are very important. They tell us what the kid is needing. If the kid's repeating a word, that means there's something wrong with how they're getting the phonemics blends. If the kid skips words, means that the kid's probably just not even trying those. He's trying challenges. He's just skipping those. All the benchmark assessments point to us to give the student a certain level. A, B, C, or D, right? And based on that level, we give kids different kinds of texts, fiction and nonfiction. We want the kid to get all sorts of different texts and get the experience of reading. Find something they like to read. Basically, you're throwing everything at them to see what they like. If they like the storybooks, okay, good. We found something they like. Maybe we can focus that when we do some independent work with them. If they like the nonfiction books, that's great. They like stories about animals. Okay, good. You're finding something to get kids interested in reading because that's really what gets them ahead. Another thing we also do with them, let's see. Get my notes here. So the program also uses recordings and videos of sound words, so the kids also hear the word blends. And that's basic. Sometimes a kid does not know how to blend the word. Let's see here. So, sorry about that. All right. So students face a lot of challenges when they're expected to achieve at the same academic levels as the non-Yale students. That's kind of what frustrates some of our kids. They see some of their other friends going into some of the other classes, like some other work where, and they have to go either with me to a pull-out or one of the other teachers. And that kind of tends to frustrate them. So you have to find ways to motivate. Okay. You try to build a strong foundation of fluency so the kids feel that they're actually advancing. They actually are advancing, learning the fluency, learning the phonics. They're learning phonological awareness. And I think we feel that the students learn better from this EO program with various texts and genres, like I said. So here's one of the things we do. We try to teach students to think within the text. Okay? Learning how to look for information in the text, how to summarize the information in text, and how to monitor and self-correct their reading. That's thinking within a text. And then after that, we teach students how to think beyond the text. Thinking beyond the text is when they can actually start thinking of the predictions in the text. They can actually think about, oh, what is the text saying about it? And then then the last thing we do is we teach students how to think about the text. That's when we teach students to think how to critique the text, how to analyze. Those are the three main things we do with them. Okay? All right. I'm going to do the PowerPoint now. Yay! All right. So, oh, it's ready. Okay, good. All right. So I'm going to talk about these areas of reading difficulty and just take a couple of minutes on this. All right. So, my source is, like I said, our program is called Fontes of Penel, and that's the name of the people. I read Fontes and Gay Sue Penel. They're these two teachers who wrote this book, and they wrote the whole program focused on teaching readers. So let's get started. Okay. So these are reading problems most of our students have. This is what's called language processing. The ability to use language while reading. Okay, I think the little barcode blocks, so that's fine. So language is a meaning.
I'll fix it.
Yeah, you fix it?
Yeah.
I just don't know if that's just a little bit smudge. There, all right, there we go. Okay. There you go. Okay, yeah, that works. All right. Language processing is one of the problems kids have. The kids don't get the semantics. So all language has these rules, right? Language has meaning, it has a syntactic system and a phonological system. The language processing problems are one of these problems, either syntactic or phonological or a meaning. So, meaning system is a semantic system that contains the emotions and labels that bring meaning to a text. Syntactic system is a system of syntax composed of the way speakers string words together. My example is Yoda talk. So if you have a kid that has a syntactic system problems, he's mixing the English wrong. So, and a lot of times, because we're Spanish speakers, we have kids do that. They mix the words up. So we have kids say, let the girl run, or something like that. It sounds a little bit off. You have to teach them how to use the right tactic system. Like the girl is running, right? Phonological systems, how to interpret a system of sounds. So these are usually problems in the language processing, right? Next one I want to talk about is phonological processing. Understanding that speech is made up of sounds. So sometimes kids still can't get the sound. This teaching them the sounds in English is sometimes really difficult. You have to tell them, okay, feel how your mouth moves. Okay, feel that. Okay, that's the sound you're gonna make. Teaching kids about the be and the or something, it's tricky. You have to teach them, put your tongue between your teeth. Teaching kids the difference between the fricative V and the B, that's really difficult. You tell kids, okay, teach them about that, how to do that with the fricative V. Sometimes kids still can't hear it. That usually is a phonological processing problem, okay? Phonemic awareness is the ability to identify, isolate, and manipulate the individual sounds or phonemes in spoken words. Sometimes a kid can't hear that sound. You ask them, can you separate the sounds? And that's one of the ways when we teach them to do the clapping for the sounds. And separating the sounds of language can be really difficult. Okay, so that's another problem we usually have, phonological processing. Sometimes they have visual processing problems. Okay, they still don't have enough concept of print to understand how the letters work. That's usually, you see this in the earlier level, earlier grades. They can't separate the letters. They can't make the sounds. Okay. They can't get to the left or right sequence sometimes. And sometimes when you have that, we also have other teachers screen them for maybe dyslexia. That could be an issue. But most of the times it's usually just a processing problem. They need to learn how to get the information left to right. And when they're doing writing, sometimes kids will switch letters. That's the most normal thing. Okay, use of background knowledge to construct meaning. The ability to bring information that exists in the reader's head to the processing sense. Okay, so that's when students bring personal knowledge to what they're reading about. This is a great thing for students that they can actually identify the text. Sometimes though you're doing a lesson and the kid will read something and you want to share something with you. That's okay, we'll save that for later. We'll save that for later. But if a kid doesn't have the background knowledge when you're reading something, they sometimes will not get it. If he's reading a story about a kid in the snow lost his mittens, you need to stop for a minute and explain what mittens are. Because nobody here in the valley has used mittens. Probably. Okay? If the kid doesn't have the background knowledge about mittens, your story about the kid losing the mittens is like, ¿qué es eso? You won't get it. Okay? So there's personal knowledge, like I said. There's also content knowledge. He learns about the words, and the literary knowledge, which is engaging with the text. If the kid's reading a book that talks about some other book, if the kid doesn't have the literary knowledge, let's say you read a story and the girl, and they mention, and the girl fell like Alice through Wonderland. If the kid doesn't know what Alice through Wonderland is, because he doesn't have the literary knowledge, they can't make that connection. So this one's a little bit less of an issue, but having the personal knowledge, you have a story with kids, that's very important. So that's why we kind of look for texts that kids can identify with. All right, connecting reading and writing. The ability to acquire information in one area and use it to support learning in the other area. So kids, they learn to read, and that helps them learn to write. Sometimes a kid, he might read to you the letter, and when you ask him to write it, he can't do it. He can't connect how the word was in reading to how the word is in writing. You have to go teach the kid, look, hey, look, we read the word. You copy it? Okay. Now, can you read that letter? Now, can you read the word? Okay, perfect. Now, reading expands children's knowledge of print and language. They can later use in writing. And the writing helps the children use language to attend closely to print, which will help them solve words and reading. So once we have kids actually writing words, they can actually start breaking down the words and the sounds, and that actually helps them read. Reading fluency. It lets you sprint the language to convey the meaning of the text in oral reading. Sometimes we want the kids to be fluent so they can read. They can actually understand what they're reading. If the kid starts to read too haltingly, he won't hear the text and he won't understand it. So that's why fluency is very important. We want fast automatic processing for reading fluency. And fluency includes appropriate pausing, phrasing, word stress, and intonation. Kids need to learn when to stop. So we teach them about periods, we teach them about all the spaces. So just want them to hear what they're reading. And then attention. Sometimes the kids don't have the attention. They like to sustain one's attention while reading and direct that attention to the most helpful and useful information. Readers divide their attention so they can decode print while understanding what it means. Readers are selective in directing their attention if they're efficient. Okay, and memory. Sometimes kids don't have memory. You have a kid read a text. Okay, what did it say? Kid completely forgot. He's not actually using memory to remember what he's saying. He's just reading automatically. Readers remember information that they need to bring to a reading. So you need to remember how to read the different words. They do use the phonology. A kid might have read to you the word a certain number of times, and then he'll see the word again in text, and he can't read the word. He completely forgot how to read the word. The kid needs to build a memory to see, oh, that's the same sound as the word I read before. Oh, it is the same word. Processing actions and cognitive actions. Oh, it sounds so fun, I know. All right. This is about readers acquiring information through how they're reading. The reading brain has 4 processes, guys. Okay? There's chronological, orthographic, meaning, and context. When you read something, your brain is doing these 4 processes. You're getting the words together, the sounds. You're seeing how the words are written together. You're trying to get meaning. You're trying to get context. Let's say you read something about there was a bolt of lightning. You read the word, the bolt, and your brain has to think, which bolt is it? Is this bolt of lightning? Is this bolt of lightning like a lightning bolt? Is this bolt like a soup, like you know how they have a cloth and bolts? Is this bolt like a big arrow? Is this bolt like the screws, bolts and screws? Huh? Is that what it is? Your brain actually has to think about that. And read that sentence, you know what the meaning of the sentence is. Oh, it's bolt of lightning. So you're already using that cognitive action, you're already processing that. A kid that doesn't have the experience, what all the different forms of the word bolt or the word lie. Let's say that it's lying in the sand. The kid doesn't know if it's talking about lying, like to not say the truth, or it's something that's just lying there. That's something your brain needs to learn. So we need to teach the kids cognitive actions, processing. And then I think this is the last one, emotion, motivation. Affective factors that have an impact on all areas of reading. Affective factors are emotions that you have about yourselves and your surrounding. So sometimes kids don't have a good self-esteem. You're having the kid read, and they're doing well in small groups. So when they read to the whole class, there's an affective filter going on. They don't want to read. They feel distressed. Sometimes emotions keep our kids from reading. Yeah, I think that was that last one. Yay, okay. So these are some of the problems, some of the more common problems in reading we have, right?
Will you share another screen? Or is it?
That was it.
Oh.
That was it. That was it. I wish I could have made more, but like I told you guys,
No,
it was
it's
parent teacher conference week. It's been busy.
This is really good, and
Let me tell you a little bit about some systems of support we have. Okay. So what I do with English language learners, I do pull-outs as I mentioned before, right? I do small group instruction work. So we have readers of the same level. So I go pull kids and I try to get all the kids at the same reading level. Let's say all the level G kids, okay, you're all coming in my class at this time. And I have them in small groups. You need small groups when you're doing this program. Because you might want to focus on all the kids, but no, you need the small groups because they need to be at the same level so they feel comfortable reading with each other. They feel, oh, well, okay, we're all the same. We're all the same. They don't feel like, oh, that guy's a better reader. He's gonna ask him to read. One thing I do with my small groups too is I randomize who's gonna read next completely. Like I have a small dice. Some people use playing cards with their names. Just randomize it because I don't want the kids feel like, oh, they're getting picked on. And then after you randomize a couple times, you know the kid doesn't get picked, you think, okay, it's your turn because you're gonna get picked. But just have the kids not know who's gonna read next. It could be any of them. And then they don't want to roll the dice too, but that's another thing. Okay. We do small group instructions to support them. The small groups instruction has to be organized, coherent, and tailored to the student's needs. So if you have to have text that's appropriate for their age, and not just for their age, but for their maturity. So let's say I have really low reading level group, and there's 6th graders. I'm not gonna give them the book about the puppy getting lost. I have to give them something. So sometimes I do have educational non-fiction text. And that's something they can learn about. They can learn about a certain animal and it's text at their level. Because I know they're not gonna want a little story about some puppy, like I said. Sometimes you have a group of younger kids, they're 3rd graders, but they're at a really high level. Well, I'm not gonna get the book on, let's see, let me think a little bit. There was a book on dinosaur poop. The kids loved it, but maybe let's not give it to the 3rd graders. They're not gonna stop laughing about it. Let's give some other kind of text, right? And in case you're wondering, those are called copper lines. Okay. So you gotta find text that's effective for your group. You gotta create routines. Very important when you have students in elementary, you have routines, like I said. The kids expect you at a certain time to pick them up. Let's say you're a little bit late because of a meeting, the kids will mention that to you, like, we're late. I was at a meeting with the principal, I'm sorry, okay. So you also gotta have your routines to spend the least amount of time at transitioning. Transitioning is getting the kids to your group or having the groups work on different things. And I'll mention what things to do with the groups here. We need to have the routines to not lose time transitioning. You gotta find lessons that emphasize reading and writing continuous text. With most of my kids, because of time limitations, I usually only have like for 35 or 40 minutes. And we'll do the text for maybe 30 minutes, 25 minutes, and then I'll have to do a small writing thing. It could be something simple like ticket out the door. I have them go on Google Class, and in our Google Class page, I have them write about one of the questions about what we read about that day. What did the kid do for that? And they have to write it. A small amount of writing. You need to connect the writing to the reading. It's very important. Other things that we do is, so we also have, like I said, small groups. Some of the small groups are reading with me, and some of the other groups I send to do independent work. For independent work, I have a teaching program called Read A to C. It's also Fontes and Panel Standards Aligned. It's kids learning from different reading levels. The kids supposed to read text at the level they're at. They hear the text, then they read the text, then they answer some questions. Questions that are based on the text. They're text-dependent questions. After the kid has done a certain amount of books, he advances to the next level. It's supposed to keep getting harder. A lot of the times, I have to reset their levels. A kid will get up to a level, and then they'll tell me, I can't do it, it's too hard. Okay, we'll go back to your other level. You can do it again. And I let them do that to make them feel a little bit secure that, okay, I am comfortable with this. And when they actually get to the next level that they wanted me to go back from, and they feel a little more comfortable. Like, okay, you read at this level twice. I'm pretty sure you can do this level now. Again, some students, you need to build up their confidence for reading. Is that through the years they've seen other students tell them, you know how to read, things like that, and they really get stuff. Really, really affects them. All right. Students also, like I said, continue reading from the book selection that I give them. And I think I've almost done something else. Yeah. Students feel accomplishment of reading tasks from doing their independent work and from doing small group reading. Another thing I also work with is a program called Nessie. I don't know if you guys heard that one. No? Nessie is a program that's also reading and spelling based. It's for the students to hear. It's more for the phonemic blending. So I use it with the lower grades. Usually I try not to use it for more than no more than higher than fourth grade. But I do have kids in special 504 plans and IEPs that I let them use the program. And sometimes a lot of kids in those programs, they want choice. That's part of their thing. So if the kid doesn't want to do the A to C portion, okay, you can work on NESI today. And the NESI, they hear certain words and they're supposed to write the word. They hear certain words and they're supposed to look for the word. And it's supposed to be a little bit more fun for them because it has like these gorillas hiding the words from them, stuff like that. So those are some of the things we do. Okay. Okay, we're gonna stop there. And